Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to learn more about atoms in the chapter Structure of the Atom. We can recall from the last chapter that Dalton's atomic theory stated that an atom was indivisible. But later on, it was discovered that even smaller particles called neutrons, protons, and electrons were present inside the atom. This obviously was contrary to the Dalton's atomic theory. Let's see what led to the discovery of these smaller particles. J.J. Thomson in 1897 discovered negatively charged particles called electrons. He did an experiment to discover these negatively charged particles. In the experiment he did, a gas at low pressure was taken in a discharge tube made up of glass. At the ends of the discharge tube, two electrodes were placed connected to a battery of high voltage supply. The electrode connected to the negative end was known as the cathode, and that to the positive end was known as anode. He then observed a stream of negatively charged particles coming out of the cathode towards the anode. These particles were called electrons. The collection of negatively charged particles emitted from the cathode of discharged tube is called cathode rays. Therefore, it was also called Thomson's cathode ray experiment. Previously, in 1886, Ernest Goldstein discovered the positively charged particles called the protons. He observed in the same gas discharge tube with different situations that the anode emitted positive particles, and he named them canal rays. His experiment led to the discovery of the protons. In the year 1932, J. Chadwick discovered neutrons. Neutrons are the particles which have no charge. Based on their observations, scientists proposed different models or the structures of atoms. Let's see Thomson's model of atom. He proposed this model in the year 1897. According to this model, an atom is a uniform sphere of positive charges as well as negative charges. Positive charges obviously because of the protons, and the negative charges because of the presence of electrons. This model also stated that atom as a whole is electrically neutral because the negative and positive charges are equal in magnitude. You can understand this model if you imagine a watermelon. Imagine the seeds as the fundamental particles, of which some are positive and some are negative. This model is also known as watermelon model, plum pudding model, or apple pie model. But again, there were some limitations of Thomson's model also. It failed to explain how protons and electrons are arranged in an atom so close to each other. In the year 1909, Ernest Rutherford did an experiment in which alpha particles were bombarded on a thin gold foil. So, two things which he used were alpha particles and thin gold foil. Alpha particles are the doubly charged helium ions. Helium ions have a mass of 4 mu. They are fast moving alpha particles and they have a considerable amount of energy. A thin gold foil with a thickness of 1000 atoms were used. In this experiment, a lot of fast-moving alpha particles were bombarded on thin gold foil, and after passing the foil, the alpha particles would hit the screen. What he observed from his experiment was that most of the alpha particles passed without any hindrance, means they could easily pass through the thin gold foil. But some of the alpha particles deflected from their original path at a noticeable angle. Very few of the alpha particles bounced back at their original path. You can understand this experiment if you pass the light of torch on a sieve or a wire mesh. You observe that in the shadow, some rays pass, but the light that falls on the wire could not pass through. Just like in Rutherford's experiment, some of the alpha rays passed through the atoms and some of them were deflected back because they must have hit the electrons. From his experiment, Rutherford proposed a model of atom, according to which most of the part in an atom is empty. There is positively charged center in atom which contains nearly the whole mass of the atom, and the center is called the nucleus. The size of the nucleus is very small compared to the atom. He also said that electrons revolve around the nucleus. But again, there were certain drawbacks to Rutherford's model also. According to Rutherford's model, electrons revolve around the positively charged nucleus, which is not expected to be stable. But a charged particle in an accelerated motion in a circular path would continuously undergo loss of energy and finally would fall into the nucleus. This makes an atom unstable, while actually atoms are quite stable. Just imagine yourself keep running in a circle. Would you lose energy at some time? Yes, you will. Similarly, it was said that any particle, which are electrons here, would lose energy and fall. But according to Rutherford, electrons were moving continuously. So that was a big issue while accepting his theory. Another thing is that Rutherford's model could not solve the problem of atomic mass of atom, as it proposed only the existence of protons in the nucleus. Later on in 1913, Niels Bohr proposed a model according to which an atom consists of heavy positively charged nucleus. The whole mass of the atom is concentrated in the nucleus. He said that the electrons in an atom revolve around the nucleus in definite circular path called the orbits or the energy level. These can also be called as orbitals or the shells of the atom. Orbitals or shells are represented by capital letters of K, L, M, N or the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Each energy level is associated with definite amount of energy. That means the shell which is closest to the nucleus has lowest energy, that is K, and L, the energy would increase a little bit, M, energy will again increase, and so on. The change in energy takes place when electron jumps from one energy level to another energy level. That means if an electron is moving from K to L, there is certain amount of energy change in the electron. The arrangement of electrons in various shells or the energy levels of an atom of the element is known as electronic configuration. The maximum number of electrons that could be put in a particular shell, or the energy levels, was given by Bohr and Bury. According to the scheme of Bohr and Bury, the maximum number of electrons that can be accommodated in any energy level is given by the formula 2n square. N is small here, where n is 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on for the shells K, L, M, N. The maximum number of electrons in the outermost orbit will be 8 electrons, even if it has capacity to accommodate more electrons. Electrons are not accommodated in a given shell unless earlier shells are filled, that is, stepwise filling of shells is followed. So we learned that the first orbit is denoted by K, second orbit is denoted by L, third is denoted by M, and fourth by N, and so on. So now we know that the distribution of electrons in an orbit can be obtained by using the formula 2n square, where n stands for the number of that orbit, 1 for K, 2 for L, so on. Let's calculate for K. If we take n is equal to 1 and put it in the formula 2n square, we get 2. So K, which is the first shell, can have 2 electrons only. And for L shell, which is the second orbit, if we put it in the formula 2n square, we get 8. So second orbit can have 8 electrons. Third orbit or M shell will have 18 electrons, as you can calculate by the formula 2n square. So if we want to find out the distribution of electrons in different elements, we can use their atomic number and see the accommodation of the various shells. Let's take an example and understand this. Lithium has atomic number of 3. So if we try to accommodate in the shells KLM, we get 2 in K and 1 in L shell. Let's see boron. Boron has the atomic number, 5. We accommodate these in K and L shell because K has 2 and L has 8 electrons. So we get 2 and 3. Carbon has the atomic number 6. We get the distribution of electrons as K 2 L 4. Nitrogen, atomic number 7. Distribution K 2 L 5. Let's see some element in which we get 8 electrons in L shell. We can move to neon. Neon has the atomic number of 10. So in this element, the distribution will be 2 in K and 8 in L shell. Sodium has the atomic number of 11. For this, the distribution will be 2 in K, 8 in L and 1 in M shell. Can you find out the distribution for aluminium? Yes, its atomic number is 13 and the distribution will be 2, 8, 3. It's pretty easy. Silicon, if we look at silicon, atomic number is 14. Distribution will be 2, 8 and 4. Students, we have used the term valency previously also. We will be studying about it in detail in this chapter. Valency simply means the combining capacity of an atom. When we look at the electron distribution in various elements, let me take an example of silicon here, which is the atomic number is 14 and the distribution was 2, 8 and 4. The electrons present in the outermost shell of an atom are known as the valence electrons. So 4 are the number of valence electrons in this case in silicon, and these electrons determine the valency of an atom. Valency, as I said, is the combining capacity of an atom. That is the tendency to react and form molecules with atoms of same element or different element. For the atoms having valence electrons less than or equal to 4, the valency is same as that of the number of valence electrons in that atom. So for silicon, it is 4. The valency is 4. For magnesium, the atomic number is 12 and the distribution will be 2, 8, 2. So valency is 2 here. If number of valence electrons exceed 4, then valency is equal to 8 minus the number of valence electrons. For oxygen, let's see. Valency of oxygen will be 8 minus 6 because the distribution here is 2, 6. So we deduct 6 from 8 and we get 2. Valency of atoms with 8 valence electrons is 0 as they have fully filled the valence shell and cannot gain or lose electrons to form molecules or compounds. To understand valency, just remember that each element wants its shells or outermost shells to be filled with electrons. Unless they fill it, they are not stable. So we studied that the outermost shell is called the valence shell and the number of electrons in the valence shell are called the valence electrons. And the number of electrons an element needs to combine with the other element is known as the valency. Let's look at a few more examples to understand this concept. In chlorine, the atomic number is 17, so the distribution will be 2, 8, 7. How many electrons does it need to be stable? It is 1. Because there are 7 and the outermost shell can accommodate 8 electrons, so the valency of chlorine is 1. Argon, which is 18, the atomic number is 18, distribution will be 2, 8, 8 and the number of electrons needed in the outermost shell will be 0. So valency is 0. Atomic number of an element is equal to the number of protons present in the nucleus of an atom. Atomic number can be denoted by the letter capital Z. Since an atom is electrically neutral, this number of protons and number of electrons are equal. That means Z or the atomic number is equal to the number of protons and these are equal to the number of electrons in an atom. Mass number can be denoted by the letter capital A. The total number of protons and neutrons present in the nucleus of an atom is called mass number. Protons and neutrons together form nucleon. The number of neutrons present in the nucleus of an atom is represented by capital N. The atoms of the same element having same atomic number but different mass number are known as isotopes. For example, carbon has two isotopes, one having 12 mass number and other having 14 mass number. Hydrogen has two isotopes, one having mass number 1 and the other having mass number 2. Chlorine has two isotopes, one having 35 mass number and the other having 36 mass numbers. Isotopes of uranium is used as a fuel in nuclear reactor. Cobalt isotopes are used in the treatment of cancer. Iodine isotopes are used in treatment of goiter. Atoms of different elements having same mass number are known as isobars. For example, some species of sulfur, chloride, iron, potassium, calcium all have mass number 40, but their atomic numbers are different. So all these are isobars of each other.